Welcome to Let's Talk Broncos. It's Therapy Monday, y'all. I'm Brie Maestas, joined by Zach Seegers and Joey Richards. Guys, how are you?
I'm tired of Therapy Monday. I mean, I like it. Like, I think my content thrives in negative situations like this. The likes, the retweets, the people hating what I have to say is amazing. But I am, truthfully, guys, for how much this may shock you, I want the Broncos to win. I do. And I'm tired of coming here all pissed off and angry. But usually after this, I feel a little better. So let's get into it. Zach, how are you feeling?
It's a lot of pressure. Yeah, Zach, how are you feeling?
I'm doing good because I feel like I found the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit today, and just like I don't know. Hopefully, the Broncos can get out of this pretty quick and spare us this nightmare because this is one of the dark chapters in Broncos history.
Yeah, it's fairly dark.
This is one of the
Not a
Broncos.
fan of it.
Sorry.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off. I think I froze for a second there. He is. It's a nice hat. I like it. Zach, your hat?
Shout out to Mike.
Yeah, wanted to rock the Mike Purcell hat. Just big fan of Mike Purcell.
I'm gonna jump right into it.
I'm just a big fan. I think he's a really cool guy. I think if you know Mike Purcell, you know that he's just a really good guy, and I'm a big fan of friend of the pod. Just good dude overall. I think he gets what's going on the field. You know, he's an intelligent player. He understands the game at a high level. He knows what is happening, and just Mike Purcell.
I might even add to that and just be like, true competitor, man. Mike Purcell, true competitor. I think he is a leader, Mike Purcell. There's a lot of good things could say about Mike Purcell, but shout out to Mike.
On that note, Ty Walden was in the chat early today to get the first comment in. Let's start here. Dang, reading Twitter and listening to three of you, Zach and Joey, are really bringing the heat this week. Wilson restructure, Peyton at fault. Goodness gracious. I like how he specifically called out Zach and Joey for having the heat. If you've been listening to me at all today on any of the podcasts or shows you can find me on, I've been a little spicy myself. I would like to say that I'm not a fan of what I'm seeing, and I've been a detractor since the trade went down. So if you're familiar with my work, if you're not, please go check out the Fan Cave. You can catch it on Mondays or on the Broncos Blitz podcast with Danny Williams. I'm not happy, and I don't think that this is some unprecedented downfall. Do I think it's way worse than I thought it was going to be? Sure. But I don't think that I've been quiet in my haterade for what is happening with this Denver Broncos team and how the offense continues to lag behind. If you'd like some other extra spicy takes, go ahead, throw them in the chat. I'll highlight them or I'll counter them with something else. Let's start with what we were seeing on Sunday, because I think a lot of it was pointing to tension, a little bit of passion, as one does during football. But I think there's a little bit of a hot seat issue going on. Is it time for Hackett to pack it? Zach, thank you very much for that branding. I think it's appropriate. Go ahead and hit me with it first. I want you to start it off.
Yeah, I think it might be. Like, what is he giving you at this point? The one nice thing I was saying for Hackett over the last few weeks is like he has kept the locker room together. He has kept these guys playing hard. I don't think that's the case anymore, right? Like, it looks like the fire's kind of gone with this team. I think you saw it some in the Raiders game. You really saw it in the Panthers game. And then, of course, it seems like maybe there's some locker room division going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So the way this is framed, time for Hackett to pack it, ? Right now, I would say no. I just don't see any benefit to getting rid of a head coach midway through the season. I don't know. Unless you had someone in the wing that you really wanted to take a look at, say, hey, can this guy possibly be the next option? Unless it's like that, it just doesn't serve any purpose for me to do it. I mean, we saw Hackett got his play calling duties taken away. What happened this last week? The Broncos offense looked atrocious. They looked really, really bad. Like, I don't think there's a lot you can do to this point right now to fix what's going on. I just don't see it. I don't see that coming this year. I think it's time for Broncos fans to wrap their head around that. It's just, It's not coming this year. There's too many issues. I don't think you're fixing Russ all in 1 year. I think there's too many issues across the offensive line. The receivers are beat up and a little underachieving, right? And then our running back room is turned from Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, Mike Boonen to Latavius Murray and Marlon Mack. Like, we have too many issues to fix this right now. There's not anything you can do. So I don't think it's time for Hackett to pack it right now. But if we're talking at the end of the season, bye, man. Pack your bags, bro. I am ready for the next era of Broncos football already. Like I said, I don't want to be here talking about Broncos L's that much longer. We need complete rehaul coaching wise.
Fully agree. And I think it goes past coaching. I'm done with this era of the Broncos. Broncos need to start ushering in the next iteration of themselves. I think you look at a lot of players on this roster, and they're not going to be around for the next competitive version of the Denver Broncos. And we've just got to be real about that. We thought this was a win-now team. It's not. So where do we go from here? What's the best path?
You tell us, Zach. You were the one with the Russell Wilson takes this morning. Ty said it earlier in the chat about how we can get rid of him.
Oh, yeah. My goodness. Get rid of. All right. You're salivating. Hold on. I want to remind anyone, if you're watching on Twitter, go ahead and jump on over to the YouTube or the Facebook stream. I don't want to take Zach off of his gasoline, but let's go. I just want to remind everyone so you can get your comments highlighted. Go.
Yeah. So I think everyone's been saying, like, oh, the Broncos can't move off Russ. They're stuck here forever. And they can. And I even think there's an argument for moving on this offseason is the best, because next offseason in 2024, on like the 5th day of the league year, about $37 million more of that contract becomes guaranteed. It gets like the guarantees don't just go away. They keep stacking as the contract goes on. So like as time eats up some of those guarantees, more are piled on. So you're really not gaining all that much by like letting it play out another year. You're really costing yourself, like, rather than getting out from under the weight of this Russell Wilson contract after 2024, you're not, and 2024 wouldn't even be that bad. It'd be like $10 million. You're not getting out from under it until 2025. And that matters. That matters when you're looking at probably drafting a quarterback 2024-ish with a high draft pick, maybe 2025. Now there's a chunk of that rookie contract when you should have the advantage of a cheap quarterback room. You don't have that advantage for a year or 2 years because you weren't quick to move on from Russell Wilson. Let's be real. This isn't looking good. I think improvement is certainly possible, but I think improvement like to elite play. I think improving to elite play, which is where he'd have to be worth that contract, to not be a competitive disadvantage, I think that's out of the question. He needs too much of a supporting cast at this time in his career, and his contract is too preventative in terms of acquiring that supporting cast. So I would tear this thing down and start building up. Here's how it's possible. You cut him as a post-June 1st cut. This spreads the dead cap over 2 years. The first year, you're going to eat $61 million in dead cap. Ouch. The second year, you are going to eat $46 million. Both very painful. The Broncos, though, can free up $70 million by restructuring Simmons, restructuring Sutton, restructuring Patrick, restructuring DJ, restructuring Bulls. So that's the painful part. Cutting Darby, cutting Glasgow, cutting Edmonds, cutting Jake Martin, cutting Albert O, cutting OJ, cutting Cushenberry, cutting Purcell, cutting McManus. All of those players, even if they don't move on from Russell Wilson this offseason, might get cut. They're all going to be in conversation for that. The restructures are a little painful, but even when you look at the ones like Garrett Bowles, like Cortland Sutton, where you're like, do we want to be committed to this guy much longer? Even a max restructure, you're only committed to them financially for like another season, looking at what I could find on Over the Cap. And also the flexibility you're losing by pushing those contracts down the road is nowhere near the extra guarantees being added on by holding on to Russell Wilson for longer. So even if you're concerned with all those restructures and everything is, well, what about cap flexibility? It's what? I'm so confused. It's not, I really didn't though. Let me go over this list again. Yeah, I like cut everyone. I give you these things. Ronald Darby, almost 30-year-old corner. He might be over 30. Coming off an ACL, and based on how Damari Mathis is playing, they're going to consider cutting Darby for $10 million anyways. Cutting Graham Glasgow for $11 million, that's 100% happening. Cutting Chase Edmonds for $6 million, that's 100% happening. Jacob Martin for $4 million, maybe not. Alberto, OJ, and Cush are all 100% getting cut. Purcell and McManus, you can debate them. But you can even remove some of those people and you still get to the numbers you have to get to. You would ultimately be short like 40 million in cap this season. But again, with those moves, you free up 70. So you'd still have plenty of money left over to field a roster. And then the next season, you're going to be hit by 46 million in dead cap. But Russell Wilson's already making 35. So how much it hurts your cap is only 11 million. You're only actually losing 11 million in cap space. I know this is all rambly and a bunch of numbers. Go find my thread on Twitter. You can see it all written out a little more organized. Point being, it's super possible. It is super possible. And Broncos country should know that. So when George Payton decides to give Russ another year this offseason, he wasn't forced into that. In no world was he forced into that. He has the option to pull the ripcord on this right now. And if he doesn't choose to do that, I think it's going to be a black mark on his record. And I think we're going to look back at this offseason and go, they could have gotten out of the haunted house right then, but they decided to stick around and see if the ghosts were real. It's like every horror movie. You're like, no, just get out of there. Just leave. This is a horrific situation. You need to leave. And they always stay, get murdered. Leave the haunted house. Don't get murdered.
My only thing is, like, do you think the Broncos have a possibility with Russell Wilson to be a playoff team next year? That's my question. I want to ask you guys that. The chat, say yes or Y or N for yes or no. I want to know, do you guys think that the Broncos with Russell Wilson have a chance at the playoffs next year?
What are we saying? Not a realistic one.
But you
outside. I think they have an outside chance, but that has nothing to do with Russell Wilson and everything to do with honestly, probably not. I'd say it's like 4 or 5% chance. I wouldn't give it a much better chance than everyone else. And yeah, that's dead on. That's how I feel. But I need people to know it's possible. I'm even doing the Charlie Coy hands, but it is so possible to get out of this thing. It's like you'd lose like 40 million against the cap this year and 11 million against the cap next year. And again, by doing some very easy, friendly moves that I think 80% of the fan base would agree with, you can free up 70 million this year. So what's the problem? You can do this and re-sign Draymond Jones to a lucrative extension. No problem. It's super realistic. So why aren't we doing it? Because of George Payton's job security. That's the only reason.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to completely take it away from George Payton to still think hey, while we might not be sitting here, or while the chat, or while some Broncos fans, because it is split in Broncos country, right? I'm not giving it George Payton could easily think Russell Wilson could be hurt right now. Let's wait until the end of the season, and maybe he comes back, looks like the guy that I thought he is, and I think he can be next year. While I might say that I don't believe that could happen, I'm not going to take it away from George Payton and say I don't think he might think that. You know what I mean?
And if that's his evaluation, and again, that's possible. His evaluation is one of two things. Either Russell Wilson can return to being an elite quarterback that's worth that contract, or he understands that owning the Russell Wilson move as a complete and total failure after one season and going, we just have to move off this right now, would be severely damaging to his job security, or a bit of both. Either way, that evaluation should be on the record, because if you're watching next season and Russell Wilson is bad, you should know that George Payton is the reason you're going to be anchored by that contract through 2026 instead of 2025. Or 2025 through 2024 rather. And that's all I want.
Let everyone know that
it's not forced, it's a choice.
A friend of the show, Frankie Abbott, can no longer watch the stream after this comment. He is being banned. So I just wanted to put that out there for all of the LTB listeners and commenters. Frankie, it was a nice ride. You can still guest host on Thursday, so just
Frankie
you're not
is my
allowed to
man.
comment in the chat.
Well, we're gonna have to
Ty
host
Walden also says if they play the off season right, yes. I'm not sure that. I mean, there's a ton of off season moves that they have to do right. However, is subjective. I don't believe that a lot of Broncos country falls on the same plane when it comes to what the right way to play this off season is, because I think that it goes in two completely different directions here. If you're asking what's right, it may be moving on from something that's limiting this offense pretty ridiculously. Although I think the other side of the coin is surrounding Russ with more weapons and a different head coach and seeing if it plays out any differently. I do not believe there is a right or wrong answer here, but there is a possibility and a probability, and it goes in who's driving the ship. George Payton is going to make some decisions to keep his job, as Zach has so most eloquently put it. Robert Armstrong has now fallen off the Russ train. Hello, everyone. I was wrong about Russ. I finally woke up and I said I will no longer trust Russ. No more trusting in Russ. That should have been the banner, I think, for today's show. Joey, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just that. So I do think that this is like we are hitting. So while I'm not like a Russ believer, like at this point, I'm really not. Like I think we're seeing like this guy has fallen off a bit from what we at least thought we were getting. Like not even a bit, a lot. I do think that, but it is also important to note that this is literally the worst Russ I think we are going to get for a bit, because of the fact that I do not see, unless maybe you guys think so, I don't see another way the Broncos field a roster that's worse with Russell Wilson or any quarterback for the foreseeable future. I don't see there's a way we have this many injuries. I don't see there's a way we have that many underperforming players. I just don't see that. And while I want to put 100% blame on Russ, because like I said, I don't think he's a great player at this point, I do think that it's a team sport, right? It's 11 for 11. It is you have an 11-man offense, and it's the ultimate team sport. People love saying that it's the ultimate team sport until they don't like their quarterback anymore. I just had to throw that out there real quick.
Zach, any parting words for the audience?
Yes, I'm out of here, everyone. Sorry. Enjoy Joey and Bree the rest of the show. I agree with Joey. I think that actually is a good point. It's probably the worst version of Russell Wilson. But I do think what happens if his mobility gets even worse and his processor continues to not speed up, and he continues to not adapt, then I think it could get worse. Then I do think it could get uglier because he has been able to extend a little bit. Sorry. Thank you all.
See you, Zach.
Bye. All right, Joey. So I guess here's my concern, right? Like I've already said, so, there's no right or wrong. There's actions and there's consequences. We've seen the actions of trading for Russell Wilson and the consequences of thus doing so. Injuries obviously play a factor, but I'm not willing to scapegoat the injuries on this team because injuries have been happening at a rapid clip for Broncos country for the past 3 or 4 years to a rate that really honestly feels like the Broncos have been cursed since the 2015 Super Bowl. I just don't think that there's hopes for a playoff run next season. It would take an absolute lot of things to happen to make that a possibility. Frankie says, I want to highlight this. What scares me is we're seeing Russ play at such unconfident football. And I don't know how that gets fixed with an entirely new coaching staff coming in. Here, Frankie, I've been speaking to this probably for the last 3 weeks out loud, just seeing that the confusion does look like an entirely different mental shift than what we were even thinking we were going to see with the variabilities with a new coach, a new system, a new team, a new quarterback, yada, yada, yada. All of those things kind of put together in combination have created a really volatile offense. And so when you hear people say, well, if you pair him with a different play caller, right? So Kubiak's doing the Hackett system and the Hackett plays just as the play caller, really just hoping to not create that much variability and see if they can help Russ. I don't think that next season you're seeing this like whirlwind of change, changing an entire offensive scheme. It blows everything up again. Yeah. It's not like some easy change, especially when you have a veteran quarterback who's already struggling going from team to team. I don't feel good for the next 3 years.
No, well, totally. Like, and not even only that. Like, so the goal, right, is to get these teams out of we want them to get out of too high coverage, right? And in doing that, because it doesn't look like Russ is going to be able to throw over the middle of the field. He needs to target the sidelines. He's one of the, historically, I will say, because it hasn't been this year at all, but historically, we all thought this was one of the best deep ball throwers we've seen in the NFL. We need to establish a ground game, and in doing that, it's like we are starting from absolutely ground zero, it feels like, right? Like our running backs, Javonte Williams, that injury looks like a big deal. It looks like a really big deal. And especially for a running back that relies so much on his physicality and his ability to break tackles, if he loses that even a little bit, like what am I looking at? Because his vision has never been there, really. He makes bad plays look good because of his ability to break tackles so much. So if he loses that, what am I looking at? Then across my offensive line, hey Wayne, how's it going? Across my offensive line, I feel like I'm starting from ground zero too. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Garrett Bowles this one, next offseason. There is an out in his contract. He is coming off an injury. He was having not a great year up to his expectations. Quinn Miners looks like the really only guy that maybe is like the starter for the future between our offensive line and running backs, right? So like how do like in doing that, I feel like that looks like a multiple season process in rebuilding that. No, I don't feel like you can replace 4 offensive linemen and get yourself a workhorse at running back all in 1 year and make it work with a new coaching staff, like what you were alluding to, Brie.
Yeah, I think that that's necessarily something that you can consider there. Dave Glassman asked, is it like a Willis McGahee bad injury?
It's really bad. It's a multi-ligament injury, right?
Yeah, it's multi-ligament, so it's not just an ACL.
So, and oh man, I wish I had that tweet fired up. There's a Zach Seegers article where he illustrates how difficult it is to come back from. I think it was like there was a study on it, and I think it was like 30% of athletes with his injury or a similar injury come back. Only 30% come back to being like themselves production-wise. So that's tough. That's not looking very good.
Yeah, it looks a little frustrating. Cal said Zach who? Zach Seegers. Yes, we did mean Zach. Thank you for pointing that out. Please.
Can I yell about George Payton a little bit?
Yeah. Today, Joey, I called you Frankie for some reason. Joey decided to light Twitter on fire with his crazy George Payton take. I don't think it's necessarily that out of line. Joey, what made you say that? And how much blame are you pointing in that general direction for the general manager?
It's just like, I don't know what world we live in, honestly, where this guy doesn't at least deserve some of the blame. It really is crazy to me. I don't understand the situation at all with it, where he's some untouchable figure. I get it after that first year, like everyone's hopes were up, right? After seeing that draft class come in and produce with rookies and stuff like that, that was rare. But if we're looking at, like, there's more than one aspect to GMing, right? You have to look at coaching hires, trades. All of this comes into it. Like, it's not just one thing, contract extensions. Like, he is making more than one decision. Like, we're not just talking about the draft here, guys. This is like an issue to me. And I'm just confused how he became so untouchable. Or if you say George Payton's name in what people deem like a negative way online or anywhere, you're going to have a bunch of people coming to attack you. And I just don't understand how it got to this point all in 1 year. Because he did have his missteps, and he's made like 4, I think, decisions that could swing the Broncos either way, right? I think the first one, his first year as GM, was taking Surtain over Fields. Debatable, right? It's debatable. I think quarterback is more important than cornerback, but you can't be mad at the Surtain pick because he does look so fantastic. But of course, I think the decision should have been to go with Fields, me personally. And then you have to look at firing Fangio. That was a huge decision. And then you have to look at hiring Hackett. Massive decision. And then you look at the Russell Wilson situation where it's contract extension and trade. These are all huge, massive things, and everyone's acting like he's hit all of them out of the park. And I just think it's more debatable than what people are leading on, personally.
We had this discussion prior to going live on where and when you draw the line when you're talking about a team. I do understand that fandom can sometimes not cloud judgment. I'm not saying that, you're silly for holding back on these feelings, but there's sometimes where we have to dig in hard to get these answers because they need answering. So that's what we're doing here today. And that's what you'll see us doing every day on Let's Talk Broncos, Monday through Saturday. Thursdays is a special draft episode, which is going to focus on something different entirely. But I do want to say that Joey's debatable opinion is actually pretty straightforward here. I do want to touch on a comment here, especially one that gets burnt. All great cornerbacks sometimes make mistakes and or are beat by better or worse receivers. I don't think there's anything against that. There's specifically a I don't know if it's a focus group of people who don't really think that Patrick Surtain is everything that he's been conflated to be. What I do think it's appropriate to mention is that when you do put somebody so high on a pedestal where I do think he belongs, there's a chance that they're going to fall off every once in a while. I do hope that he's able to recover the rest of this season, but offenses have been able to figure out a way to bait him because of how his tendencies relay on the field. So as I've been watching that, I hope it's a learning lesson and a teaching moment for Patrick Surtain, because I don't think he's the type of player that's going to allow that to happen to him game in and game out.
Frankie's talking like me right now in the chat. Ooh, I like that take, Frankie. I can't speak on it. I'm going to have to buy you guys a drink. I think I'm on my last one. I think I have one left.
You surpassed your free one? Do you want to take it now? Do you want me to take it? The rookie class is looking so good. It's probably a testament to Vic Fangio from Frankie Abbott at Frankie's Film.
I mean, back now that we're looking at it, it doesn't look as great as it did the rookie year, right? I think Baron Browning's a really good pick. I think Patrick Surtain looks unbelievable, but if we go down the list, it's like Javonte Williams may not ever be, and this one's really hard to blame on him. I always was under the belief that taking running back that high, and especially trading up for running back then, was a little too much for me. That was my take at the time. I still believe that, but that injury definitely changes his projection. Same thing with Caden Stearns, right? Like, we don't know what we have with Caden Stearns, another guy that looked fantastic as a rookie. You could go down the list, and it just does not look as good his rookie year. Testament to Vic Fangio, because Vic Fangio is an awesome teacher of football.
You did it really nicely there, Joey. I don't think you deserve a ding for that one, so I'm going to allow it to happen. Dave Glassman wants to know, what's the YouTube channel? Please post the link. For everyone who's listening, if you're over on Twitter, and I know you're not, Dave, I'm just letting everyone know that you can go over to the Let's Talk Broncos or Mile High Sports YouTube page to catch us live and comment in the chat. I'm pasting it right now for you. I'm just stalling real quick. Joey, hurry, talk about something else.
Okay. Do we want to talk about... Frankie brings up Montrell Washington. I want to bring up this with Montrell Washington.
Montrell Washington is actually being asked to do a lot of really big things while having a special teams blocking unit that's really not that appropriate for what his skill set is. As you saw, when he was able to get some open field, he was able to create some returnage. I think a lot of Broncos country asks a lot of the return team, and then even when they get it, they're not really happy with it. So I'm concerned with why the take was what it is. And now I really don't.
I do think that it's been disappointing from what our expectations was, but I will say this: our expectations were too high. They were too high. Broncos country's expectations were too high of the guy. It really was. It was too high. It was like we are drafting a kid that thought that he wouldn't get drafted. And this is no disrespect to Montrell at all. And then we expected to come down here and transform our return unit. It just wasn't going to happen. Or the odds of that happening were low. Montrell, another thing that irritates me, man, whenever I see number 12 on the offense, I know what's coming. I know it's going to him somehow or another. Like, can we give a bigger tell ever? Like, I don't know what's like, oh my gosh, that drives me insane whenever I see him out there.
Well, And here's the thing, though. Russell Wilson is also targeting him like he's 6'4", and he's not. If you're going to throw into triple and double coverage on a receiver that's under 5'10", and you're telling me that it's Montrell Washington's fault, it's really not. His athletic capability and his passion for this game is really high, and I don't think that he's getting a fair shake given the QB play, plus what he's set up to do. Dwayne Stukes speaks really highly of Montrell, even going as far as to blame other parts of the special teams unit instead of him for what's going wrong with that return team. So I'm going to probably err on that side.
Okay, but I will also say Stukes did also allude in a very stupid question asked to him if Pat Surtain could be the punt returner. He did also throw out a name that could possibly replace him in Kendall Hinton. Like, that's a guy that they could possibly look at to use in that, because he has had like some mistakes also, just like he had a fumble. He was like fumbling, right? We had him decisions on whether to let the ball roll into the end zone or return it issues. We've like rookie mistakes, things that I can understand. But if you're brought on to only be a returner, you have to be really solid at that job. And that I just don't think he has.
When's the last time you saw, like, what would you use as an example as a really solid returner? Like, when is the last time that you saw that?
I just think like we've had guys in the past that just are pretty consistent on whether to return the ball or not, or just consistently catch it. I would say that's consistent. Doing all the after the return stuff is, I think, the reason why you drafted him, knowing that probably he was only going to be a returner. Although the Broncos, it doesn't seem like they actually think that, because they use him so much in the offense, or not so much, but they use him in the offense. But I would just say the consistency, like those mistakes that you can't have, that those things that sway a game, like field position or turnovers, those are the stuff that you don't want from someone like that.
Yeah, the chat's mentioning Trendon Holiday. Indy goes on to say that he's either housing it or fumbling it. That was going to be my main concern there, is that fumbling was an issue. Totally fun player. Love to watch him play. Yeah. I think that's the last time that one really stuck out to me. I get the frustration. Ty also chimes in with, this is why I miss winning all the time. Too many arguments on players, team, etc. On social media. I need simpler times again. Ty, I'm really sorry. And this is not a knock on you in general, but I think that is the way that, in order for us to exist here, in order for us to talk about football and this team, we do have to talk about what actually is reality here with the Denver Broncos team. So I'm sorry that it is not all cherries and roses and rainbows and unicorns, because I get it. It is frustrating sometimes, but I think we want to take an example that's not crapping on players specifically. And that's something that I try to tend to stay away from. But we get it. We all have different styles. If you're here watching with us, we appreciate that you like listening to us talk about the team. But I honestly think it's really important to stay away from all that. Frankie says, put PS2 in at returner.
Shout out to D-Mac.
No, I swear.
I know we're causing issues today. It's the Broncos. It's Broncos therapy. Let your issues out. I mean, I will say I did in the comment section say cry, yell, vent on our tweet.
That's what you said. You said they were allowed to bring whatever they wanted. And I, oddly enough, said that I was qualified to lead all of this. Who remembers Glenn Martinez? This is from Coop over on YouTube. He has like one kick he took to the crib and it was an electric factory. Not quite sure.
I don't remember Glenn Martinez. I'm going to have to go research that after. I don't at all.
Joey, what do you think the final record is for this season?
You want me to be honest right now? Maybe it's just because I'm feeling like how I am after this Broncos loss, but I'm going into every week thinking it's going to be a L. I thought that Panthers game was going to be the easiest one that we were going to get all year. I mean, I came on to the preview show being like, I am so excited for this game because this is going to be the easiest one. This is going to be the easiest one. And now I'm not so confident in that. I mean, they didn't just lose. They really lost to me. So I just am going to pick them to lose. That's where I am right now. How about you, Joe?
Well, Cal is saying that the Rams are really, really bad. But yeah, so we thought were the Panthers and the Raiders. Barely beat the Houston Texans, who are the worst team probably in the NFL. I don't have a whole lot of faith, nor am I going to predict that the Broncos win another game this season.
Yeah.
you may see me on our preview shows try to finagle a way of the Broncos eking out a win, but at this point, it's going to be something that's not anticipated. I think it's going to be a pretty crazy thing. Frankie is also pointing out, as though we, weren't there also, they lost on Sam Darnold's first game start as an interim coach in 23-10.
Yeah.
And an interim coach. It's going to be
depressing.
It is going to be 3-14, Ty. That's where we're at right now.
And they had it kind of rolling. I mean, like, how many rushing yards did they have? Like, DJ Moore
183. 185.
Yep, guys. I mean, and Deontay Foreman has looked pretty good this year, and after the loss of Christian McCaffrey, but that is unacceptable. I don't care who the running back is or who the running backs are, because Hubbard was also part of that. It's just unacceptable. You can't have that happen. I mean, that was one of the worst I've seen the defenses look considering opponent. Like that should not have happened. That should not have happened at all.
It shouldn't have. Dave Glassman says betting on the Broncos opponent and the under is the smartest decision I make every week. And he softens the blow with an orange and blue heart emoji. Thanks, Dave, for chiming in. I appreciate it. Frankie is also saying that he wants death. I echo that sentiment. I think I've been tweeting that out for the last couple of weeks. Thankfully, nobody's taking me seriously. Now he's talking crazy about trading PS2 in a couple of years.
We're gonna trade PS2. Yeah, okay. That one. So I think everybody's available, or anybody could be available in a rebuild. The only thing is these really young players like a Patrick Surtain, and I think Frankie's being sarcastic, but I just want to.
I don't know anymore.
He is being sarcastic, but it's just like I think there's some players that are young enough to live on past the past Russell Wilson era. He's going to be really good 5 years down the line. I think he's going to be really good 6 years down the line. So I don't sort of foresee anything happening with Patrick Surtain. I see him becoming a free agent in the Broncos if he continues on the pace he is now. Paying him one of the highest contracts in the league for a defensive player, hopefully.
That about surmises everything that I feel right now. I feel a little out of it, but let's say Wayne King says we do need to keep some young players for the rebuild.
Yeah. You do.
I mean,
you definitely do. You definitely do. You need starters. You need guys that can. You're not going to just rebuild. For everyone that wants like a quicker, you can't just like get rid of everybody and restart and hope that we're fixed in a year. Like that's just not how it works. That's why I don't think that the offense isn't going to be completely rebuilt next year. When you look at it, I mean, I've highlighted this 1,000 times, but it's not just one position. It's all of them, damn near. You would like to see improved. It's not a 1-year rebuild. I think it's multiple year rebuild. You're going to have some guys return,
I feel you. Riker Will, who is a new name that I haven't seen over on YouTube. If you've been here before, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Let's Talk Broncos. I'm Brie Maces here with Joey Richards. You can also follow us over on Twitter, or you can follow this stream to get notified when we go live. That's every day, Monday through Saturday. He says Russell Wilson, the $250 million man.
Insane.
It's
a little depressing. Go read. Thread on it.
The entire time I've had that darn banner up because I've been so distracted by the chat, absolutely trying to get me fired, that I did not move on to Let's Talk Broncos. So a lot of people have just been scrolling by thinking we're still talking about getting rid of Russ. That was earlier. That was Zach Seegers doing. You can go read his Twitter thread over on Twitter, Zach_Seegers. Any parting words? Anything else you want to talk about, Joey? I guess not parting words. We're not going anywhere, but I didn't know if you had any other vein that you wanted to tap into from Sunday's game.
Sunday's game, I don't know, just like that, I thought that was the worst defensive performance from the Broncos this season, considering opponent. I want to highlight that specifically. I saw Frankie in the comments earlier bring up Bradley Chubb. Yeah, like his loss was impactful there. No one could set an edge. It was not very good. I didn't think Nick Bonito looked particularly well in that game. He was kind of driving me insane at sometimes. And I don't really think it's his fault. I think it's the way he's built. I don't think he necessarily has had that offseason peanut butter. as my man Vach Lombardi would say, yet to be able to set an edge very well, and it was noticeable. I think Baron Browning also has some improvements to be made. I think the reason you're seeing a little drop off in production from him, I don't think he's, and this is just an observation that I'm seeing, I don't think he's fully the same player he was coming off the injury. I don't. I think it's going to take a little more time from him. And yeah, that's just what I have there on the defense. I want to see more from Benito, specifically because he was our first pick of this last NFL draft.
I think that's fair. I think there's still a lot of want to be left out of this roster, specifically when everything seems to be going really wrong, really poorly. I think every week there's a new thing or a new issue that keeps getting added to the rotation, of the ball bouncing the wrong way, or ridiculous ways to lose a turnover, or just blatant confusion on every unit of this team. It'll be interesting to see, and we'll bring it to you all this week on Let's Talk Broncos in preparation for the Ravens game. We will be covering what we are to expect, what we shall expect.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting because I'm not feeling too great about it. Again, not predicting a win here. Definitely not against Lamar Jackson. Don't think the Broncos can stop the run. Frustrations are mounting, and we get it that it's a little rough in these waters here with everyone. On that note, I did want to talk to you a little bit about our sponsor today. That is obviously going to be Signables. Pulling up the banner real quick. For some reason, my computer is deciding to stall out. I feel like that's an omen for this entire season. But I will talk to you just a second. It's going to cut off my head here as I let you guys know about Signables. It's been more of a soccer week or a football week for a lot of Mile High Sports. We've been in the studio watching a ton of these games. I'm even getting into it, and I don't watch soccer outside of this week unless it's on Telemundo, which I will watch in Spanish for some reason, just because I find it soothing. But Signables has all of your favorite players, and you can display your fanhood in your office, your home, or your fan cave. They're flat footballs with digitally printed signatures on them of your favorite players, including Aaron Rodgers, which you can find on Zach's wall while he's live on the pod. They do have Russell Wilson, if you feel so obliged, Kyler Murray, I want to say Allen,
Joe
Burrow.
Yeah.
Just a ton of them. They're a great gift for your favorite football fan this holiday season, and you can collect your favorite player or your favorite team by going to check out signables.com. Thanks for hanging in there with me as we let you know a little bit about who brings Let's Talk Broncos to you. Joey, have you picked up the Signables yet?
Of course I have a Signables. And I think
Who was your big football fan that you gave it to?
I'm going with my big football fan who I gave it to. I'm keeping it.
You're keeping it? Oh, I thought you bought it for somebody else.
What? I mean, that might have been in mind at the moment. but now I might want to keep that Joe Burrow one. I think that's my favorite player out of that group is Joe Burrow. Do you have a favorite player? Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes is in there. your main guy, Russell Wilson.
I cannot stand Patrick Mahomes. When he threw a near interception last night and then an actual interception, every heart palpitation that I've been feeling all week just exploded into a bunch of butterflies. I know butterflies are not good. Frankie is ending the show on a perfect note here. Ravens are going to send so much pressure at Russ. It's terrifying. I do absolutely feel like that is correct. He also said spectacular episode. Frankie, I appreciate you sticking around even though Zach left. It's just me and Joey yelling at each other. Super do appreciate it. Ty Walden also lets us know. Thank you guys. A wonderful episode. Everyone else in the chat, you give me anxiety. I just want you to know I can't show you the Signable because it's in Zach's office. And I don't have one in my immediate availability because mine's at work. So that's what you get. All right. How does Bree like Brady but not Mahomes? Is that even legal? Yeah, like I feel like that is. I was a Patriots fan, so that's why I don't like Mahomes. It's not the caliber of fan. One more time, Riker Will. What happens if all the dumpster fire stars align and the Broncos lose out? Houston finds a way to win a couple more games, and Denver ends up sending the #1 overall pick to Seattle.
It literally tears. That's what'll happen. We'll be on here. So this offseason will just be extended Broncos therapy. If that happens for me, Frankie and I's draft show will be nothing but crying on Thursday it'll be really sad. It'll be really, really sad if the Broncos give up the first overall pick. Now, I will say this. I am not as sold on this quarterback class up top as I thought I would be going into it. I'm not. If you guys want to hear more about that, I'm sure Frankie will get into it at some point. On Thursdays, we do our draft episode. So if you want to hear content like that, make sure you listen to it.
Caleb Williams or bust. Or Richardson.
Caleb Williams, that's the next year. That's 2024.
Oh, that is 2024.
This next year, it's going to be CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. I'll give my quick little rundown. CJ Stroud, awesome eyes, intelligence. His processor is super fast, but he has no real dynamic skill. Bryce Young, I love his awareness in the pocket, his ability to make magic out of nothing is awesome. His awareness is amazing. Like, I could go on and on about those type of stuff. And I love the film that I see from Bryce Young, but it's hard betting on the body, right? I mean, he's literally going to be an outlier in that, being that he is so small, not just height, but also skinny. Like, he's not built like an NFL player, really. So you both have two pretty big red flags there that would probably keep me off of them going first overall unless I was extremely desperate.
The chat really wants you to talk about Bo Nix.
Bo Nix. All right. I'll give my little
I feel like I'm being clowned.
No, Bo Nix is a real guy. He's Oregon's
No, I know he is. Oregon's quarterback, yeah.
Yeah, Oregon's quarterback. Really toolsy. Apparently NFL teams like him. I'm not the biggest fan. That's all I really have. I don't want to get too far into the Bo Nix talk. I don't know how we're ending it with Bo Nix.
I don't know either. Catch us on Let's Talk Broncos on Thursday for the special draft episode where Joey and Frankie will break it all down for you. And you guys can ask about all the players that you want to hear about that are potential draft picks for the Denver Broncos for this season, for next year, for perpetuity as the Denver Broncos continue to work their way into or out of a corner. Joey, where can everybody find your stuff?
Yeah, everybody, make sure you're following me at JR Drafts. Again, Frankie and I have a show on Thursday. We're going to be talking about wide receivers that the Broncos could target. You know, I think it's a deeper wide receiver class. I don't think it's a very top-heavy wide receiver class, and we'll get into it then. I'm also writing. I'm going to start writing right after this. I think I'm going to do positions of need for the Broncos. I kind of talked about that a little bit today on this podcast. But if you want a more detailed look, I'll be writing about it as well. So keep your eyes open, and I will let you guys know when it's coming.
Love it. Absolutely. If you don't already, please follow me over on Twitter, BreeMaestis303. You can catch me on the Fan Cave 1 to 2 p.m. every single Monday, breaking down the prior Broncos game from that weekend. Usually have Zach Sears there on the show with me. And then every single day here with Let's Talk Broncos, Monday through Saturday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We're almost always live. Appreciate you all. Appreciate you too, Coop. Have a good night, y'all. And we will see you tomorrow.